Hello and welcome to another Dissection. Followers of this channel will be aware that the maltreatment of the Chaos Space Marine rule set is something I've been drawing attention to for some time. It's a philosophy I despise. And with us having now reached the 1-year anniversary of Chaos Space Marines not being given the 2 wounds with the other fully fledged Marines, there is a point of discussion I feel is worth sharing tied to the reality of this lacking rule support and neglect for the customers of this premium hobby. The question is, should we boycott buying codices? For the sake of clarity, I think it's best I connect the dots here on why this is a worthy conversation point. We need to ask ourselves why. Why has GW made no effort in bringing the core Chaos Space Marines to the 2-wound standard, when 1 year ago they announced that all fully fledged Space Marines will be getting 2 wounds? There is a small caveat to point out here. This announcement pertains to the fully fledged Space Marines within the Loyalists' particular codex. That said, the points I raise in this video still stand. Well, we can gain some insight to this issue by looking at the 9th edition publications released so far. One of the trends we have seen with these rule publications is that Games Workshop likes to pair them with product releases. Space Marines and Necrons were released alongside the Indomitus box and the subsequent range rollouts. Death Guard released with the Lord of Virulence, Drukarian Sisters released with the box set paired with the new characters, and the subsequent range expansion for the Sisters. Adeptus Mechanicus released with the Skitarii Marshal, the Orcs Codex was paired with the Beast Snagga range, which brings us to the Grey Knights and Thousand Sons, which also released with a paired box set featuring 2 new characters. Looking at the trend, we can see that GW clearly has a release schedule all laid out and quite likely is planning to release a Chaos Space Marines codex alongside a product launch. And to that I say, fair enough. GW doesn't want to release a codex if they're working on a product to pair with its release. Makes sense to me. If potentially multiple units are in the pipeline for Chaos Space Marines, it's logical to delay the relevant publication so it can be as up-to-date as possible. It's not the paradigm I would advocate for, but I can see the rationale. So if this is the case, it begs the question. If a faction's paired product release and publication is going to be more than a year out, why not release interim support for them? And with that framing established, the reason GW hasn't released any FAQs to remedy these horrendous sores in the state of their game becomes clear. It's because they have determined they do not need to. Games Workshop have plotted out their release schedule, and it's clear they are operating under a paradigm of release product, serve it with rules so customers will consume, proceed to release next product. They have no real care for the health or the disparity within their game system, or the reality that they leave customers of this premium hobby feeling unrewarded and poorly served. But there are more layers to this rotting cabbage of a scenario. Beyond the principled arguments I laid out in favor of providing interim rule support to the lacking factions, there is another angle that only increases the absurdity. This is due to the potential value such a course of action would provide. Surely releasing interim FAQs would be an excellent way to beta test rules and mechanics at scale, allowing data to be gathered from events, battle report producers, and other various online channels. This data or feedback would be of great value to temper the interim rules so they can be in their best form when the time comes for their official release. Because as we all know, the rules released in Codices often contain critical oversights, resulting in a required errata within weeks of its launch to course correct the inept understanding of the mechanics and their limitations. With that in mind, access to wide-scale beta-tested rules just might be an extremely valuable asset when it comes to developing and managing a game system that is trying its hardest not to go fully digital. Sorta seems like a smart move when you think about it. But you might be thinking, oh sure, but such a service would require a steep cost to set up, organize, and maintain. It's an argument that holds considerable weight for your average company. If profits are thin, then there's considerable risk to consider. Though, that bucket doesn't hold any water here. It's no secret that Games Workshop is experiencing their best sales period ever, which recently saw yet again another record-breaking increase in revenue relative to the previous year, seeing all employees receiving hefty bonuses. I'll link this article in the description of this video for those interested. So it's safe to say it's not as if GW lack the resources to provide for their player base. Ultimately though, there is an inhibiting factor that persists. You see, this current framework we are subjected to actually discourages Games Workshop from providing interim FAQs to factions which are beleaguered. In the simplest of terms, the larger a deficit a faction is under, the greater the perceived value will be when it comes time to release their codex. It's all set up so GW can essentially position themselves in the role of the savior.
Your savior is here!
Though it's a sham, since they are the ones who left the factions neglected to begin with. It's kinda gross. So there's your answer. Games Workshop doesn't care about the state of their game system, or Chaos Space Marines in particular. Nor do they have care for those loyal customers who bought into that faction. They only care about selling the current product of the week on Warhammer Community. On that topic, a quick sidebar. To paraphrase a point made by the Outer Circle, when was the last time you have seen focus on a faction that has already received a codex, or a highlight delving into a unit which was previously released on Warhammer Community? It's not often. I can't recall it. The vast majority of the time, nearly everything on the Warhammer Community site relating to the tabletop is focused on selling the next thing. And under that framing, calling the website Warhammer Community feels inaccurate, dishonest, and to be frank, pretty gross. And that's why I feel this discussion is worth having. Should we continue to support a rules management system that facilitates the neglect of its factions and thematic consistency? A system that also takes advantage of leaving vast swaths of the customers of this premium hobby adrift in space, waiting for the stars to align so that they can be served by the game system they bought into? Honestly, I don't think we should. And I don't think I'm going to. You have to vote with your hobby dollars. And to be frank, it sucks. Because I like the codex as a product. And to be clear, it's not because of the rules they provide. In fact, I'd posit the rules are probably the worst element about codices. They're often made inaccurate due to erratas that arrive within weeks of their release. And the choice to bind the rules to them is standing in the way of a superior fluid digital rule set that can change with the tide. I like codices because I appreciate a well-crafted book with great art, photography, and lore that is focused on a particular area of interest set in this lore-rich IP. And on a personal note, I find the organizational information relating to the factions to be extremely valuable for building out your army's lore, which is one of my favorite aspects of the hobby. It's for those reasons I really do like what codices are as a product, and it's incredibly disappointing that buying them supports the system they are attached to. And I personally don't want to support a system that generates revenue through neglect for the gaps within its game system and poorly serves the customers of this premium hobby. Well, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for watching. And a special thanks to my patrons, Julius Maximus, as well as the others who help keep the dream alive. These were my thoughts on the current rules management that besets Warhammer 40,000 9th edition. I hope it was interesting if not enjoyable. So how does everyone else feel about this trend? I know it's essentially the status quo, but I don't think that makes it acceptable. I truly do feel discussion on this subject is important. So let me know what you think in the comments below. So, if you enjoyed this video, there's a like button, and if you want to help my channel grow, there is a subscribe button. There is also a bell button and a share button, so press the buttons you want to press. And with that, I'll hope to see you guys in the next one.